What's up, YouTube? So before we get started with this video, on first take, they're going to be talking about if Aaron Rodgers doesn't make the playoffs this year for the third year in a row, would that tarnish his legacy? So let's see what they have to say about that.
Aaron Rodgers is the best football player I've ever seen. He has more sway over the outcome of any game than anyone I've ever seen. Anyone. And yet, if he sits on one, people aren't comparing him to Brady anymore. I've heard people talk about Drew Brees actually is the greater quarterback than Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is better than both those guys. You think there's not pressure? New coach runs the old guy out of town. The new guy put in. If this doesn't work out, if he ends his career on one Super Bowl, if he loses to the Bears, ESPN simulated the season 11 billion times. The Packers won 13 games. You know why? Because of Aaron Rodgers. If they miss the playoffs again, history will remember him
as
differently.
What? As one of the greatest of all time. Aaron Rodgers will still be one of the greatest of all time.
But he will not be in the argument that he should be.
That narrative will never change. I mean, Aaron Rodgers' body work. Now, listen, do I think Aaron Rodgers' career as far as titles, maybe has he underachieved in that aspect? Probably. I think.
Well, if he's underachieving and getting championships, then that's a problem, especially when you compare him to some of the best quarterbacks ever, like Tom Brady, Joe Montana, or Terry Bradshaw. I mean, that's a problem because he doesn't measure up, not even really close. He only has one ring. And for Max to say that he's the best football player that he's ever seen, I mean, come on, Max, come on. Aaron Rodgers isn't even the best quarterback ever, let alone the best football player you've ever seen. I don't know who you've seen, but I know Aaron Rodgers isn't the best football player that you've ever seen in your life. So to say that, it just doesn't make sense. And to compare Aaron Rodgers to Tom Brady, or even compare him to the best, you can't do it because Tom Brady has 6 rings, been to Super Bowl 9 times, and Aaron Rodgers has been in the league long enough that he should have had enough time to accumulate a couple rings, but hasn't been able to do it. And like I said, Tom Brady is the perfect example of how you do it if you're the GOAT. Like I said, he's been to 9 Super Bowls, won it 6 times. And, you know, to be even compared to him, you have to be going to multiple Super Bowls and win multiple rings. So Aaron Rodgers just doesn't have it. Plus, the past 2 years, hadn't even been able to make the playoffs. That's a problem. That is a problem. And you're starting out kind of bad. You didn't play one preseason game. You didn't get any type of snaps. You have a new head coach. You haven't made the playoffs in 2 years, and this is how you start. That's not good. That's not good. But let's continue.
You could definitely put some of that on the coach because like you just pointed out, the coach didn't adapt to what's going on in the National Football League right now. The pressure's on Mitchell Trubisky. Dan pointed out, had a lot of points. Number one, you gave up a lot of assets for the guy. Okay, you go from 3 to 2, give up a boatload of assets for a guy. You go out there, you hire an offensive-minded coach just for the quarterback, okay? Then you go out there and you're signing guys in free agency. You make a big move for Khalil Mack. Mm-hmm. Why do you do these things? Because you got a quarterback under a rookie deal, okay? Because these teams understand that you have a window, especially when you got a quarterback under rookie deal. You got to capitalize right now. Who has a better roster? The Bears. Chicago Bears or the Green Bay Packers?
Bears.
The Bears have the better roster. If you look at the Bears right now, everyone will say the Bears just as good a contender of anybody to get to a Super Bowl right now.
But what does Trubisky have to do?
Okay, so look, Trubisky, he has a different type of pressure than what the arguably, I guess, supposed to be the best football player Max has ever seen, Aaron Rodgers has to do. Nobody, if Trubisky doesn't win, the expectations aren't going to be very high to be like, okay, he's a bust or he's whatever. Nobody really cares. But if Aaron Rodgers doesn't make the playoffs again for the third year in a row, and people consider him, some people call him the best football player that they've ever seen, that's a problem. That's definitely a problem. All the pressure is on Aaron Rodgers because, like I said, if some people call you the best quarterback or the best football player that they've ever seen, and you only have one ring with what probably will end up with 16 or 17 years in the NFL, and you only have one ring, how can you even remotely compete with other quarterbacks that are at the very top? Like I said, with the Joe Montana, Terry Bradshaw, or even a Tom Brady, you can't. And you can blame whatever you want, but those guys found a way to get to multiple Super Bowls and win multiple Super Bowls, whether it was with the coaching or players or whatever. They found a way to do it. And Aaron Rodgers hasn't been able to find a way to do it. He only has one ring, and that means something. That means a lot. And like I said, for the past 2 years, you haven't even been able to lead your team to the playoffs. It just doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. I would say all the pressure is on Aaron Rodgers because everybody has high expectations for him. Everybody knows what he can do, and he hasn't been able to do it. And you don't want to fall off towards the end of your career because that could hurt, that could really tarnish your legacy. So let's continue.
And everyone has
to not mess it up.
No, that's not good. No,
be a star.
That's not good enough because guess what? You're going up against Jared Goff in the playoffs. You're going up against the Drew Breeses. Like, there are a lot of really good quarterbacks in the NFC. So it's not good enough to just, don't mess it up. No, he needs to take the next step. Like Pat Mahomes took the next step.
No, you're missing my point.
Pat Mahomes took the next step. We need to see Mitchell Trubisky. I'm not saying take the next step. Wait, hold on. Let me finish. Hold on. I'm not saying that he needs to get to that type of level, but he does need to take a next step as far as his production is concerned in order for the Chicago Bears to realize all the moves that they made to help Mitchell Trubisky.
You're talking about.
Look, I bet you, for real, I bet you there's some people that have no clue who Trubisky is, the quarterback for the Chicago Bears. I bet you there's some people that have no clue who this guy is. No clue whatsoever. And everybody knows who Aaron Rodgers is, and everybody knows what this guy has done. And a lot of people know that he hasn't made the playoffs for the past 2 years. He only has one ring. He's one of the greatest quarterbacks of this generation. I don't know if I want to put Aaron Rodgers as one of the best ever, but he's definitely one of the greatest quarterbacks of this generation. And again, if he doesn't make the playoffs and he just falls off towards the end of his career, that's not going to look good. That's not going to look good at all. I tell you, all the pressure is on Aaron Rodgers, especially if things don't work out with this new head coach. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look good at all. And as far as Trubisky, like I said, some people probably don't even know who this guy is. He could walk into a room and nobody would care. Nobody would have any clue who this guy is. But I don't know. So let's continue.
Once they get to the playoffs, if they get to the playoffs, I'm talking about whether or not they get to the playoffs. So start the season, we can't start projecting what they do in the playoffs. I'm talking about who is under more pressure to even make the playoffs, right? Trubisky's on a team where if he doesn't screw it up, they should be in the playoffs. The reason ESPN, I believe, when we simulated it,
if he doesn't play well,
he has to play well. The difference is Aaron Rodgers is expected to play out of his mind. If you took Rodgers off the Packers and replaced him with someone like Trubisky, you think our simulation would have had them winning 13 games? The reason we think of the Green Bay Packers as title contenders just about every year, even though they don't have that kind of team usually, is because of Aaron Rodgers. Much more is expected of him.
Well, that's because he's a better.
There is a lot expected from him, but guess what? He only has one ring. And how many years has he been playing? I don't know. It's like plus 15, I think. I can't quite remember. I'm sorry. But like I said, he's had enough time to accumulate enough rings, and he hasn't been able to do it. One ring is just not enough when you want to be compared to some of the top and best quarterbacks, and because that's all that really matters. All the individual, stats and all that, who cares about that? All anybody cares about is jewelry, and that's it. And nobody knows who Trubisky is, and he could have a good year or bad year. It probably won't even really matter, But Aaron Rodgers, it matters for him. And it's going to look real bad if he doesn't make the playoffs again. It's going to look real, real bad. But guess who doesn't have to worry about that? The other guy he's trying to compete with named Tom Brady. Tom Brady, his legacy is sealed. He is sealed. Do you know why? Because he goes to multiple Super Bowls and wins multiple Super Bowls. That's why he can be touted as being the best. And that's why he doesn't have that much pressure. But you can't say that for Aaron Rodgers because Aaron Rodgers hasn't made the playoffs in the past 2 years. It doesn't look good. So all the pressure is on Aaron Rodgers, especially if you want to say he's the best football player you've ever seen. So let's continue.
Player, but that doesn't mean he's not under less or more pressure. No, because
he's under more pressure.
So if Aaron Rodgers,
great.
So you made the comment, Aaron Rodgers is the best football player you've ever seen in your life. So that means that there's nothing that can happen that Aaron Rodgers can or cannot do to change that in your eyes.
Not true. That's not true.
You just said he's the best player you've ever seen.
I can say peak value. Look, Kobe Bryant.
So if he wins the Super Bowl this year, does he become the best player you've ever seen?
No, I think he maintains that status. If he doesn't make the playoffs again, it's going to be harder and harder for me to argue that position. Listen.
So I don't understand, Max. How are you ranking the best football player you've ever seen in your life? Because like I said, Aaron Rodgers is a great quarterback. Do not get me wrong. He's a Hall of Famer. But I mean, what's your criteria for ranking the best quarterback? Because he's not even the best quarterback in the league right now. That can go to Tom Brady, and some people would say, like they said in the show, maybe Drew Brees, maybe Ben Roethlisberger. But Aaron Rodgers only has one ring. So I don't understand how you putting up there so high. Is it his personal stats? Because that's not what really matters when you get down to nitty-gritty and talking about who's the best. So I don't know what his prerequisites are for being the best quarterback, let alone the best football player. What is it? So let's continue.
But you say Kobe, he was the best player that you've ever seen.
That means someone has to become better than that.
Kobe Bryant. Well, listen, Pat Mahomes just had he might be on his way. Kobe Bryant won 3 chips. He did it with Shaq. If he didn't do anything on the second half of his career, if he never won another championship, we simply wouldn't remember Kobe quite the same way. Still, you could make the argument.
Max, you are absolutely sick. You are absolutely sick. For one thing, he won 3 rings as a Laker. That's huge. He three-peated, Max. He three-peated. That's not something you forget. A three-peat means you're a dynasty. Okay, Max? That means dynastic. So he will never be forgotten about or overlooked. You're sick, Max. You're absolutely sick, and you don't know what you're talking about. So let's continue.
Kobe's one of the greatest players we've ever seen. That's already cemented. But where on the list is important when you get to that rarefied air? The fact that Kobe did it twice in the second half of his career, went to 3 straight, elevated him. If Aaron Rodgers never sniffs another Super Bowl, if he starts missing the playoffs year in, year out, this will be 2 in a row, with different coaches, his status will be affected permanently.
Let me use your basketball analogy. LeBron's greatest championship in your eyes is which one?
The comeback against Golden State.
I would say the first one in Cleveland.
Why?
Because everything was stacked against them.
That
it
was
would
the same
never
one.
happen.
We're talking about the same one.
Okay, then the reason is because the investment that was made into that season, everything was bought in. Okay, LeBron can actually make this happen. We can make this happen. And the city had starved for it for such a long time. If he goes one in LA, cool. They've had a bunch of championships before. Chicago, as a city, the pressure to play quarterback there because of the expectation.
You just made my point for me. The reason the one with Cleveland was his greatest championship.
Because he did it in Cleveland.
No, because he beat a 73-win unbeatable team and came from behind in the series to do it in Game 7 on the road. In other words, the chips were stacked against him. He slayed the monster. If Aaron Rodgers can slay the monster of the Bears, who we all agree have a better team than the Packers, if he can do that and make the playoffs, the Bears are a monster.
All right.
They're not.
I don't even know if they're going to win it.
Yeah, I don't know where all this hype is coming from the Bears. Like, seriously, I have no clue where all this hype is coming from the Bears, really. To tell the truth, I'm like, would they even make the playoffs? That's how how insignificant the Bears are to me right now. And it's only week 1. So you act like if they play the Bears and lose, that just breaks the whole Green Bay the whole Green Bay Packers season's over if they get beat by the Bears. It's only week 1. I mean, it just doesn't matter. It matters, but I mean, if they win or lose, I'm sure they can make adjustments for the other 15 games that they have. So I don't know. Let's continue.
Who's going to win?
Warriors were